Welcome to Community Chat. My name is Kevin Tacci, and I will be your host for this segment and actually a series of interviews. We are looking to speak with the folks who are running for the open seat on the Abington Select Board. There is an election coming up, a special election, Saturday, September 21st. I will tell you now, and I'll tell you at the end of the program, that if you're not sure as to whether you are eligible to vote or what your voting status is, easy enough just to go to Abington Town Hall and talk to the town clerk's office. So we have 4 candidates that are running for this seat, and today we're sitting down with Amanda Zompetti. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So just to start the conversation, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up in Central Mass, went to UMass Dartmouth for college, Rochester, New York City for a few years, and then came back to Massachusetts. I am coming up this spring, will be 10 years in Abington for me and my family. I have lived with my husband and my son. My son's actually going to Wisdale this year, 3rd grade. Super exciting. My joke is I'm not a townie, but I'm raising one. I hope he gets to stay a townie. We'll see. It's been still figuring out the South Shore coming from Central Mass, but we've had an absolute blast here in Abington. Become involved in quite a bit. I can do would you like a quick run through of what I've done in town in the last 10 years?
Sure.
I'm currently on the Wisdale PTO board as treasurer. I spent the last 2 years as the Beaverbrook PTO board treasurer. I'm on my 2nd year for the Board of Health. I was actually just reappointed to the Community Preservation Commission, so it'll be my 4th year, and I spent the last 2 years as chairwoman. I did join last fall the Charter Review Committee, which is why I'm so excited to have this called the Select Board, hopefully after it's ratified in April 2025. I'm also an election worker, so you'll see me at the primary September 3rd. I cannot work the special town election because my name is on the ballot, and I will also be there November 5th. And then I've worked at Beaverbrook Elementary for the last 2 years, and then this year I just took a job there, changed my role as the front desk administrator. So had a lot of fun in these 10 years.
So what led you to want to run for the select board, and what would be some of your goals if you are successful on the 21st?
I think, so I was debating about running potentially next spring, because then that would give, I did struggle a little bit because leaving now, if I am elected, I am leaving, 1.5-year term. Someone has to serve on the Board of Health until next April, and they'll be appointed. I was hoping to run next year where it would be a little bit different. But really, I'm just excited to see what else I can offer. I've had kind of my hands in a couple different places over the last few years, and I'd love to kind of just bring a different perspective. As someone who, I'm an elder millennial, geriatric millennial we're called. I was able to afford my home. A lot of people in my generation or younger are struggling with that. Having a student in school, going through the school systems, I think I just have a different perspective, and also coming from I didn't grow up here, I don't have family here. So I'm hoping that bringing that perspective of here's how I've seen it done elsewhere, maybe it can work for us, it might not, but sometimes having different perspectives makes a huge difference overall.
So you started as part of your introduction saying that you moved here 10 years ago. What made you choose Abington as a place to settle down, and how do you support local businesses?
So we initially, when we were looking to purchase a home, we wanted a home that was unique. So it wasn't just, our goal was if you walked in a house, you didn't know where the bathroom was kind of thing. You had to ask because you wouldn't know the floor plan. But we also wanted one where there was, when we drove through town, there were people walking. We see lots of people out and about, using the parks or the streets. We wanted to be near a commuter rail and have businesses nearby that we could easily get to. We are in walking distance of Dairy Queen, so we are there a lot. Our dog also loves when we bring him. He gets his little cups of ice cream. Oh my gosh, we do quite a bit in the area. We love Abington Depot. I love Sion's. I haven't been to Yaz's Table in a while.
But you've been there.
We've been there. Yeah, we probably have hit, I've only done like the cellar twice, but I think we've hit almost, we try really hard to not go to big chains unless we have to. That's kind of like something that just comes from, I think, from living in New York City, is you just avoided the chains because it was probably better service and it was more fun. I'm a Trukey's fan because I also learned how to say the name. I won't say how I used to pronounce it, but I am there very often as well. I prefer that over any of the other grocery stores, for sure.
I think you also mentioned that you were part of the Charter Review Commission. Talk to me about, have you had a chance to look at the town charter to define what it is that a select person does? Do you know what the role of a
Yes.
select person does?
Yes. So I love to say this, when I told my family that I was running for this, my dad, he was like, well, when you run for mayor, I was like, Dad, just so you know, it's not a city, it's a town. A town has a board, a mayor is a city. And really it's overseeing and kind of consolidating one source of oversight. We do have, unlike some other towns, our town manager handles a lot of the day-to-day. I look at it similar as I'm on the Board of Health, and a lot of towns, the Board of Health does a lot more than ours does, but because we have a health agent and a health department, not as much falls to the Board of Health. So the same thing happens with our particular select board in Abington, is there is oversight and they do have control, but at the same point, a lot of that does fall to the town manager, just the way that we've had it set up over the years. And that's how it's going to continue with the current charter as well. So there is, it's not as much as other towns, but there still is a need for that particular position.
Okay. The early financial forecast says that there could be a shortfall for fiscal 26,
Yeah.
which could lead to cuts and possible layoffs. Would you be in favor of a Prop 2.5 override, or do you think the town should make the necessary cuts and work through it?
It's hard. If it comes down to it and the Prop 2.5 is something that's put out there, obviously a lot of research is put into it. It's not just something that's tossed out there and, yep, we're going to do it. I think particularly because we still have a little bit left from this new building, the high school and middle school. We just approved at a special town election the DPW and fire station. What are we doing with the Frollo, Beaverbrook, Woodsdale schools? Student populations are lowering, but they could pick up again, and they're just really old, and they're starting to fall apart a little bit. And so it's one of those, we've done well the last few years. We've been running really lean. It's hard to make that decision. I think there might have to, it would be curious, what are the nitty gritty, where could the cuts be? But it's tough because even DPW, we need to expand our DPW, who is a fabulous team. I love our DPW. For such a small town, they are wonderful. I love them, and I wish we could give them so much more. So I would not want them to be the first ones cut. But it's definitely something that has to be looked at, and it's across the board. It's a lot of other towns are struggling with this too. It's not just us. We've been really lucky in terms of how it's been working out. But it is definitely going to be a struggle either way. I don't have an opinion either way because it really comes down to what does that fall look like and what are we looking at. But the Prop 2.5 is going to be really hard when we've already put so many things out there. We also have South Shore VOTEC potentially coming as well. So a lot of things coming down the pipeline that we already have to plan for that I wouldn't want to ask again for even more. That's really tough.
It's interesting because you touched upon a couple of things that are part of my questions here in regards to candidates and some of the questions we want to put to them. Another sizable expense that the town has been dealing with is trash and waste. And it took up a lion's share in fiscal 25, and it promises to do the same in fiscal 26. Is it time for the town to consider maybe a user fee, or should we just stay with the system we currently have?
So I think the first thing we're doing, and Chris Schultz just announced this, the health department is, at our last Board of Health meeting, these next 6 months, they're going to go and try to do quick inspections. Because a lot of it is, if you're putting styrofoam and plastic bags in the trash and recycling, it's causing it to take slower time for sorting at the ends, which costs later. If your trash and recycling is sticking out of the bins, it might take longer for the driver. So all these things where if we all complied, the cost could go down potentially. So there is that there. I would love to see if we could, and it's unfortunate with the shortfall, but potentially, we talked about trying to join other towns. We're part of that South Shore Recycling Collaborative that does a lot of like the metals and electronics recycling. I'd love to see us group with a few other towns to see if we can get a large cardboard shredder or something like that. Cardboard takes up so much space. There's so much more shipping to home. How do we do something along those lines where we get the browns for the compost site? I know I'm getting like into the nitty gritty, but if we comply, I'd like to see over the next 6 months if that helps at all. And I think the user fee is hard because there are a lot of people that haven't had to pay for trash in town, and it's just kind of like a line item that you don't even think about.
Yeah.
But is there a way where you can pay for extra pick? Like, how do we make it where it's not affecting the day-to-day? I look at myself, we're just a family of 3. I maybe have a bag, maybe 2 in my trash. My recycling does get full by the end, but it would stink if I was the one, if I'm, I could see myself being annoyed as someone who wasn't aware, like I have to pay a fee, but also the person across the way that always has it stuffed and I know they're not breaking it down. I know it's taking longer. We're both paying the same, but I'm like, I could see that being tough. And I could see those that also paid prior and then it was free. And now you have to pay again on top. Like, that's not fun either. So I'd like to see over the next 6 months how, if we can bring that cost down by just kind of reminding people, on the streets, basically, like putting a sticker on the barrel, be like, hey, first warning, like it's sticking out, or you put the wrong things in there. You're not getting fined at all. We're doing, it's a 2, 3, 4 time warning thing. But at least people might be aware, like, oh, that's how that works. I'd love to see that happen before we can really decide where we're going with that. Okay. So,
well, besides trash,
yeah.
besides the finances, water is an issue.
Yes.
Not only with PFAS and the expenses to filter out the PFAS, but also supply and demand. What are your thoughts regarding these issues and any possible solutions?
First, I'm so excited that we were able to get the grant to update our water treatment. A lot of towns and municipalities across Massachusetts are not doing that or not taking care of it. We're one of the few that are really getting ahead of that, which is amazing to see. I think people have to recognize that. We're not the only ones dealing with the PFAS issue. I know that, a lot of pipes in town are not in great condition, and that also leads to not great water. I think at this point, the water department is doing what they can. When it comes to supply, water supply is a global issue. It's not just Abington. Do we have less wells, or just kind of understanding, like maybe this is where the construction just stops, this is what we have, and until we can expand the source. But every other part of the world is also dealing with water shortage. And so I don't know if there's like a quick, easy solution. I know we've had a moratorium for quite a while, and maybe that just has to stay until we kind of figure everything out. Okay.
If you are elected to the board, what are your thoughts on how the town and the department deliver their services, and how do you see yourself becoming a part of that?
I'd like to see. I want to like make sure everybody knows who I am, make sure they can come with any question, like making sure that is very clear. I think finding different ways to communicate with the community about things that are available to the community, what's being done that they might not even realize is happening in the background. It's the classic, you're doing your job, particularly in municipality and town government, you're doing your job when no one notices. And the minute something fails, that's when everyone notices you. So you almost want to be when you're invisible, that's when you're doing a really good job, which can also be frustrating. And so I think the biggest thing is communication. We have the new website, and there's a newsletter that goes out once in a while, but it's just a lot of noise, and I'd be curious, how else can you get to these people? Is it teaming up with businesses? Is it teaming up with the schools a little bit more, South Shore VOTEC a little bit more, okay, the building department of Abington is coming in to meet the carpeting team, and you're not just learning carpeting, you're also learning like the building codes, like how, I'd be curious to see how that works. The health department does a really good job with that, just in terms of how they communicate, but I think right now it's just a lot of noise, and I'd love to figure out, is there a way to reduce the noise and like a better marketing potential?
There's another new master developer for the former Naval Air Station. What are your thoughts in regards to Southfield and how Abington's parcel of land is being developed or being planned?
It's is it Southfield? Is it Union Point? It's back to South.
Yes.
I struggle with it because it is ours, but it's so disconnected from the rest of the town. And I know there's a potential for business, there's a potential for residential. I just feel like it won't be, it's tough because I just don't feel like it's part of the town. And, they've talked about there's going to be businesses and apartments with business on the bottom, and like that still hasn't happened. As someone who's coming in as it was getting developed, I'm still just unsure of where that's going. I'd love to see it completely conservation, and just that's what it is. This is a beautiful park. It's technically part of our town, and we just let it go, or have it, maintained. But just struggle with how it just feels so disconnected, and just the access to it, and how much of that population is it adding? If you want to live in Abington, I want to make sure you live in Abington. If it's an apartment, a townhouse, a home, an in-law, whatever. But that I struggle with just in terms of just geographically. It's hard for the town to offer the services and everything else. And it doesn't feel like Abington, if that makes sense. But
do you feel there's like a gravitational pull as to what should be developed? Should it just be conservation land? Should it be housing? Should it be
so
X?
So my problem with the housing is apartments. And I, as someone who grew up in apartments and lived in apartments in New York City, people talk about this is an easy way to get a home ownership. Yes, great. But if it's still, it just feels I don't know. I love to see it conservation, maybe some businesses, conservation, maybe some commercial that won't affect that conservation, but otherwise, or maybe like a couple playing fields or something along those lines. There's talk of Griffin Dairy, adding, it was supposed to have, a playing field at one point, and it's still not developed because everyone really likes, having that open space. Do we put a couple soccer fields there? Do we something where the rest of it's conservation with trails, and that's just what we have? That would be my dream to kind of have that, but yeah.
Well, knowing that housing or lack of affordable housing is probably one of the major concerns here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Recently, Route 18 was expanded, so it's gone from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. Should the town consider any zoning changes when it comes to housing to accommodate the need for housing, or should it more so be looking for national chains to occupy that space to put more tax dollars in the rolls?
I'd love to see more businesses on Route 18. There's quite a bit of empty or just opportunities for, I don't want it so expanded because it's already scary to take a left turn on certain parts of 18, either on or off. And so I'd be nervous about that. But you could have put apartments there, but like, are they really nice when you're like right on 18? Like, that's not super fun. But I think there's a potential for businesses already along there that we should push more for, that we're just not getting, where it is, this great, throughway from, farther down the South Shore up to the city. How can we sell that a little bit more to the local businesses, local chains, national chains, things like that? Can we get a Chili's, kind of thing? I don't know. Don't want to compete with Abington Ale House, but I'd love to see more of that, knowing that housing is still a concern. I'm also curious now in terms of housing. The legislature just changed that ADUs are allowed. Abington did add you need the notarized letter to show that someone is an in-law. Those are ADUs, so accessory dwelling units. I'd love to see how that's going to change in Abington. With that, is that now a potential that someone, it's now a friend of the family, not an in-law? Could that help with some of the housing in terms of transition of let me get on my feet as I move forward? And I think that's going to help change the Commonwealth as well quite a bit. So I'd be curious how that goes over the next couple of years.
Okay. Earlier in our conversation, you mentioned South Shore of Votech. They're seeking a vote come January from the membership towns. I think there's 9 of them at this point to build a new school. Do you support their endeavor at the cost of the taxpayers, knowing that we are a fraction of what that cost is going to be?
Yeah. So I do like how first of all, as someone who has a younger son that could potentially be going to South Shore Votech, obviously I have, a personal endeavor of he might go there, he might go to Abington High, but South Shore Votech's brand new for him, yay. So the way they're doing it, I like, is that there's a percentage from the current and planned future populations. So it's not just split 9 ways. They're also taking, Marshfield just joined, so they don't have as much historical information for them. But taking that and planning it forward, I like how they've planned out, the money for it. South Shore Votech has been such a great resource for our community and such a great opportunity for so many, Abington families and students. If you can expand that and provide so much more services for them, it's hard to say no to that. Education helps everyone. So I'm kind of all for it. It's a struggle, obviously, when we're about to have a shortfall, but it is, a well-needed change, and our town, really benefits from it. So.
Well, recently the town did vote to build a new DPW fire station complex, but there has been whispers in regards to the 2 elementary schools, the Beaverbrook and the Woodsdale. They're getting older. Do you think the project is something that the town can afford at this time, or is it one of those things that it should be a wait and see type of thing in regards to the town's finances, knowing that the next couple of fiscal years could be tough?
It's tough. Beaverbrook right now is pretty maxed out. Specials, even at Woodsdale, they're doing 2 lunches and 2 recesses per grade, just given the space constraints. And they're older. They were much humid today, even with all the windows open. Massachusetts does offer some really great grants for building schools. They're harder to get, and then we still have to match quite a bit. I think at this point it is a wait and see, unfortunately, just given that we've put so much in some of these other projects. And you can only upgrade so much, but I think there's not much opportunity beyond that, unfortunately.
Okay.
No one's going to having me say that, but yeah.
Okay. What is the town's biggest need or known issue, and what should town officials be doing to address it?
I think sometimes there's a disconnect and communication. Sometimes I'm even caught off guard when, someone asks me like, hey, did you see this on this agenda? And I'm like, no, let me check the website. Let me dig a couple down deep. And I think if you're already in town government, it's really easy to be like, I know how to do all these things, but what about people that haven't been I've been involved in, my stepmom ran the Chamber of Commerce, and, my dad helped out. I was on the school committee as a student, growing up. So I know where to look for the answers. A lot of people just don't. And then they get to the point where they're like, oh, I just won't care anymore. I just won't do it. I wish there was a way that we could connect a little bit more. I'm not quite sure how just yet. I don't want to give specific, but I wish there was a way that we could just make it easier to connect with everybody. Particularly, a lot of the families that have moved in recently, we obviously need more translation services and other things. But I really think just making it a more open source of information, I think, is the big thing. And that kind of helps everything else.
Is there a topic or an issue that we haven't touched upon, or maybe there's something we've talked about? Maybe you might want to expand a thought.
I probably talked your ear off quite a bit. I'm sorry.
That's the purpose of you being here.
No, I just, everybody I've met working in Abington, either volunteering or elsewhere, have always been so kind. I love the little town feel, but having access to so many different things. I love seeing a lot of these updates happening with the CPA funds, either through the playgrounds, or I love that the DPW fire station is happening. That's going to be huge and beautiful and fantastic for those two departments that are well deserving for that. Seeing the Island Grove get updated. Memorial Field is already doing their work right now, and that's going to be amazing for Friday Night Football's games. But no, I don't have much else to add.
Folks want to find out more about you. Maybe they want to reach out to you, talk to you about your campaign. How can they do that?
You can actually just email me, zompetti@gmail.com.
Excellent.
Super easy.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you to the whole crew as well.
And we wish you the best of luck on September
you.
21st. And we want to thank you for tuning into a program like this. Again, the idea is to better inform you about these candidates as we plan on interviewing all the candidates, so you'll be aware as to where they stand on certain issues. If you have any ideas for programs or anything you want to reach out to the crew here, info@abingtoncam.tv is the way. And until our next conversation, have yourself a great day.